And I am just so honored that you have taken the time to come and join us today, because this is the most that we've ever had in the recent history, Gene, right? Of attendance at Chapter Partnership Committee, at the Chapter Leaders Workshop. So give yourself a round of applause, all right? Coming in a day ahead of time before the workshop starts and joining us, we are very glad you're here, and our commitment to you is to present you an incredibly powerful, interactive, and rewarding day. So for those of you who don't know me, I am this guy right up here. I am Mark Loren. I have been the chairman of the Chapter Partnership Committee, affectionately known as the CPC, for the last year. And it has been a rewarding, challenging, a lot of hard work, but it has brought us to this moment where we're at today to present you the Chapter Leaders Workshop. The other thing that you're going to find that throughout the day, we'll talk about how the CPC supports local chapter leaders. And what I want to make sure right at the start, and when we talk about chapter leaders, we are not specifically referring to chapter presidents. We're talking about everybody who makes up a local executive board. And I'm so pleased, Rose and Jean and Gary, that we have so many people who are on, that's Gary, by the way. We have so many people who are here today who are not chapter presidents, because that's the leadership pipeline. You join, you move into a volunteer position, maybe move into the board, and move up to be the president. And then after that, you can move into the vortex called supporting the society, which if you want to learn a little bit more about that, I can talk to you about that later on. In fact, I will be talking about that later on. But let me tee up the day for you and talk about what I have been banging on people's heads for the last, I can't remember how many years. This has been my reoccurring theme. And by the way, back in 1996, I sat in the same position with esteemed colleague of mine, Gene Straczynski, in leading the Chapter Partnership Committee back then. So it's kind of like, what's that movie with Bill Murray, Groundhog Day? You know, if you don't get it right, you get another chance to do it again. But way back then, working with Gene, I came upon what's it all about being a chapter leader? And there's really two things that I think you need to be able to do. And they're parallel tracks. And this is Mark speaking. This is not ISPI speaking, but this is like things I've learned in process. Who used to say that? Paul Harvey or somebody like that? Things I've learned along the way. And what I've learned along the way is that in leading a local chapter of ISPI, whether it's virtual or geographical based, one of the most important things is stewardship. And the reason that I talk about stewardship specifically with this photo is you see the man helping the lady across the river. Because every one of us as chapter leaders, current chapter presidents, half of our responsibility is to see that that chapter gets passed off to the person behind us. As Paul Cook would say, who's not here, in the Boy Scout motto, everybody knows what it is. Even Girl Scouts know it. What's the Boy Scout, Girl Scout motto? Go ahead. That's part of it. That's exactly it. What's the other one? Leave your campsite better than you found it, right? Remember that one? Okay. All right, maybe that was Cub Scouts. Maybe it was just a gang I was a part of. No, anyway, the point is that when I look at stewardship, and especially this graphic, chapter leaders' responsibilities, it's not just the hippie, yeah, gosh, we got a chapter, let me go out and be a leader. It's preparing that chapter, making sure that you are ready to hand it off to the next person who follows you. And I'm going to tell you something, that's not always the exciting part about being a chapter leader, okay? That's things like finance, that's things like leadership pipeline, that's things like making sure you have marketing in place, that's making sure that you have the tools in place. But stewardship, just as Peter Block talked about it, is that you have the chapter ready to be handed off. The other thing that and I think this is why so many people get into chapter leadership, it's the evolution, right? I can't remember who talked about it years ago. It was an ISPI conference. Contest possibly too, but it was a conference. We were talking about techno-lust. Remember that phrase that used to go around? I got technology, I'm lusting for it. I call it an iPad, all right? And part of what we have to do as chapter leaders is to evolve the chapter, to prepare it for the next generation. And it's not just technology that I'm referring to here. I'm referring about what we talked about last night, bringing in the next generation of chapter members, tapping into moving towards virtual ways of delivering our products and services to our members. So when we look at the two things that a chapter leader needs to do, one is stewardship, bring the chapter to the other side of the river and have it safely arrive so you can hand it off to the next set of leaders. The other is the evolution, to grow the chapter, to bring in new things, to revitalize it. We talk about a life cycle of a chapter. And when I say evolution, it's not just in a technological sense. So when we think about what we need to do, it really comes down today, it's those two things. How do we, in this day, help you through our Chapter Leaders Workshop move through the evolution and the stewardship of your responsibility being chapter leaders? So with that as an introduction to set the context for today, I am extremely happy you're here. Thank you for sharing your time with us. And I'd like to pass off the ball to our next, don't I have another slide in here somewhere? I thought I did.
No.
Okay.
We're done.
Gary DePaul. We can clap for Gary too, by the way.
Oh, microphone. Wow. Super tiny. Thank you, sir.
And by the way, this will be the new chapter partnership committee chairman starting at the end. Please give him a round of applause.
Well, thank you. I am also today's taskmaster and MC and facilitator, so I'm here to ensure that we're on time moving forward. With that said, we're skipping some stuff, but we'll go back to it, and I'd like to introduce to you someone who has helped out one of my chapters. I'm a past president of the Tampa Bay chapter. I'm a current member of the Armed Forces chapter and also a current member of the Charlotte chapter. And down in Tampa Bay, we had this guy come down and do a full-day workshop introducing HPT and that whole concept. But believe it or not, I didn't tell this to Miki. He helped me get my job at Lowe's that I just recently got. Because of some of the materials in there, it got me thinking about a few things. I was able to use that directly in my interviews. And they said, man, this guy's smart. I'm thinking, yeah, thanks, Miki. So, Miki, thank you. And what I would like to do is now bring up the president-elect for a couple more days to come and say a few words. So please give a warm round of applause for Miki. And for your, okay, very good.
Do I have slides?
No.
Okay. Surprised me. I thought I had some slides that I didn't know about. Well, I'd like to welcome you all here for the Chapters Leaders Workshop. And one of the things I was thinking about as I came in listening to Mark talk about the stewardship and what the Chapter Leaders Workshop is going to be doing for you and the chapters, I'm thinking, boy, wouldn't it be great to have somebody to help me through the process of becoming the president to carry the society across the river and prepare for the upcoming years. Well, in reality, that's you guys, okay? You are the future of ISPI. And I think for many years, we've kind of looked at the fact that we didn't appreciate necessarily what the chapters were providing. And if I can just give you a little brief history for a second, when I first came into ISPI about 1988, my first meeting was in San Antonio, and I think that was 88 or 87. Anybody there at that point? Okay. There was a very strong, and I don't know if you know the history, stop me if you do, strong history of chapters feeding into the society. We had at that point probably about 60 chapters, and there were they were supported by the society in that there were regional directors in which one person of senior authority would have responsibility for about 5 or 6 chapters, and they would head out to the chapters once or twice a year to sit in on meetings and provide guidance. And then we would have a half-year meeting like this where we'd bring in some chapter leaders. Now, one of the things that, and that really grew the society. One of the things that occurred about 5 or 6 years after that was that a number of ISPI leaders went out, like I go out to chapters and give either presentations or workshops or things like that. And during the session, they would ask, well, how many of you in this session of 30 people at a chapter were international members of the society? And maybe 3 or 4 people, 2 or 3 people raised their hand. And then they came back and reported saying, it doesn't seem like we're having a lot of international members that are within chapters. And there was a decision made on one decision point, one point of evaluation that said we're not getting value from chapters because they're not international members. And that swung the pendulum back to the other side, which basically said, well, we're not going to offer as much support to chapters because we're not getting anything back. And that has been the case for a period of time. And I want to tell you, I want to be not the first person, but hopefully not the last person to tell you that that pendulum is swinging back. We profess to talk about a balanced scorecard, but we do not use a balanced scorecard in evaluation of many things. And it is not just one point that you provide to the society. There are multiple points where you support the society and your members grow within the society and grow within the chapters. And I'm telling you today that we are going to increase our support either through getting out to chapters as members, through providing you other kinds of access, through in talking to many different chapter leaders, improving the website that we may eventually, hopefully, host your own chapters, okay? Provide you templates that you are going to be able to use to put together those things. So we really want to provide help. We really want to listen. We really want to provide support because we're going to start measuring not just on that one measurement of whether or not chapter members are international members, but we're going to start measuring on a variety of other things because you provide many things. The future of ISPI is within this room and within your own chapters. I sat in this room, well, not exactly this room, but I sat in chapter leader workshops for maybe 5 or 6 years. And the people that were in that went on to become board members, chairs of different committees. You are the leaders, and that is what's grown from your own chapter society. And I think that there is a cadre within the board and the future board that understands that, and we want to support you as much as feasibly possible and as much as fiscally possible. You have to realize that there are difficult financial times, and those are part of the decision-making process that's going to be involved. But what you had there with the hand, with the technology, that's going to help us immensely. There are a lot of things that we can do. There's a lot of virtual stuff we can do. There's a lot of other things that we can provide that will help as much as possible, and we will get out to your chapters as much as possible as well.
Hi, Miki. Are you in a position to share some of the other measures beyond membership to international that you...
Well, we're working on those kinds of things. It's kind of going to be where are volunteers coming from for the society? Where are chairs coming from? What are the individual chapters doing within their own communities that support performance improvement? Okay? What are the measures that you're using to show that you're successful, not just membership and dollar numbers? That's what we're looking for. And any suggestions that you can have for those criteria, please forward those suggestions as well. Okay? So I want to let you know that we're going to be there for you. And you can reach me. I won't respond to the phone at 3 in the morning, just to let you know that, okay? But my phone number, my email is on the website. Feel free to call. All of your board members understand how accessible we on the board are. And we're not only talking to you today, but anytime during the conference, come up if you got questions, concerns, issues, raise them to myself or to anybody else that's on the board. I want you to know that, yes, this is great. You're doing a great job in growing the leadership, but we depend on the Chapter Leaders Workshop to provide leadership to the society and grow the society as well. And what you're doing here today is critically important for our society, and I want you to know that we value your participation immensely. And hopefully we're going to be able to show you how much we value that in the future. Okay? Questions? Yeah. Okay, we're actually talking about that within the board, about setting those kinds of things up. It's not some, I wouldn't call HQ tomorrow and say, where are those templates, okay? Yeah, well, most likely you can talk to John Chen at headquarters, and John's right in the back of the room there, and John is going, hopefully this is not the first time John's hearing about this, okay? So I think it's one of the things that we're really looking at to make things a lot more consistent, and also make your chapter leader, your chapter agreement easier for you to do by having templates that you can use, okay? So we want to try to do that as much as possible, all right? Good. Any other questions? Any other concerns? Any tomatoes you want to throw? I accept no questions from Canadians.
In the Armed Forces chapter over the last year, we've had some real trials and tribulations with our virtual library platform. We were, in the past, we were using U.S. Navy's and center folks now. We feedback on the Canadian forces, which they decided it was not an acceptable use of their platform to support CF.
Mm-hmm.
So we're using a cheap online version. We're talking about more and more chapters using technology. These platforms are pretty expensive to use. Has anybody thought about national taking on one platform that we could all share?
We're discussing that. There are a lot of things that go into that decision. And to be quite honest, I would love to be able to provide the platform for all chapters. I just don't know how fiscally and feasible that's going to be. But we are definitely looking into that.